All right, class, raise your hand if you have ever been gunned down or sniped while jumping in the air. Okay, how many of you have ever sprinted from outside of cover only to get instantly domed by a sniper? Okay, how many of you feel like winning 1v1 gunfights can sometimes be challenging? Okay. Well, in today's video, I'd like to talk about some of the most important mechanics in the game that seem to be talked about the least. This video is not about any specific weapons or loadouts or heck, even classes for that matter. Today's video is all about you and the decisions you make in the Crucible. So, let's talk about what's holding you back from being a good PvP player. I want to start by showing you a couple clips, one from player A and one from player B. Now, without knowing anything about these players' stats or how well they can aim, which of these players looks like they're a better PvP player? If you guessed that player B was the better player, you'd be wrong. Well, wrong and right, I guess, because they are both the same exact person. So if they're the same exact person, why did one look better than the other? The answer? Their movement. The first topic for this video has to do with how you move inside of PvP. I've broken down movement into two different categories, regular and irregular movements. Let's talk about regular movements first. I am defining regular movement as any type of movement that can be easily predicted. Examples of this inside of Destiny include jumping, but more specifically falling, walking, strafing, and sprinting. Now you may be saying to yourself, well, those are like all of the basic and essential ways of moving. Well, you'd be correct. However, in Destiny, we have so many different ways that we can variably move around the map. If you're someone that feels like they are consistently getting sniped by another player, or you find yourself getting gunned down very quickly from primary weapons, then you're probably someone that uses a lot of regular movements. A big reason regular movement can be detrimental to your playstyle, and this is especially the case in Destiny, has to do with how weapons work within the sandbox. Unlike games such as Apex, where bullets have to travel to where you're shooting, Destiny has nearly zero bullet travel time. In other words, wherever you aim is wherever the bullet is going to go. You don't have to worry about leading your shots or having bullet drop off distance. I bring this up because in games that have almost no bullet travel distance, it's much easier to hit a target that has a predictable path because you don't have to worry about leading your shots. So in Destiny, whenever you see an opponent that is strafing in one direction, sprinting in a straight line, or even on the descent from their jump, it makes for a much simpler experience when all you have to do is put your reticle on your opponent. So how do you make your movement less predictable in PvP? Let's talk about it. When you're playing PvP, yes, you obviously need to be able to sprint around the map, jump in the air, and do all those kinds of things. But you need to make sure you mix in enough of what I call irregular movements. I've defined irregular movements as an action that significantly disrupts the trajectory of your movement. The great thing about these irregular movements is that every class is able to perform them to some degree. Examples of irregular movements include blink, sliding, dodging, Icarus dashing, Titan sliding or shoulder charging, shatter diving, and crouching, which I'll elaborate on a little bit later. My guess is that no matter which class you play on, you were probably able to identify at least a few of these actions as ones that you can perform. Some of them are class specific and others can be done no matter which class you play on. Some are performed in the air and others are performed when you're on the ground. Ideally, you want a mixture of both in air and boots on the ground irregular movements. That way, no matter the situation that you are put in, you'll always have some way of changing things up. So how do these irregular movements have an impact on what we talked about earlier in the video? The fact that Destiny is a game that has almost zero bullet travel time. Here's how I think of it. Like most games, Destiny rewards players that can hit their shots. Collectively, there's a lot of weapons that have really fast optimal time to kills right now. So unless you have better aim than 90% of the player population, you're probably going to experience some frustration on the other ends of those gunfights, also stasis. But by incorporating these irregular movement patterns to your playstyle, you're adding yet another variable into your gameplay that most of the PvP population is not accustomed to. That means sliding whenever you're about to come out of cover. That means shoulder charging a way to disengage from a fight. That means blinking, shatter diving, or Icarus dashing when you're stuck in midair and you see that horrifying red light off in the distance. All in all, your goal is to make it as difficult for your opponent to shoot you as possible, and the best way to do that is to be unpredictable. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to the people over in our Discord server. We've seen a good amount of new people recently, and everyone in the chatting section of the Discord is always so welcoming to those who ask questions. So thank you to those of you that are contributing to that. It does not go unnoticed. If you'd like to join our Discord server, a link to join it will be in the description, and I'll also put it in the top comment down in the comment section. All right, next I wanted to elaborate a little more on what I said earlier about how I consider crouching to be an irregular movement. Destiny PvP is unique for many different reasons. One of those reasons is the radar and its function. In Destiny, our radar quite literally tells us where enemies are located. It even goes as far as to tell you if they are above or below you, or if they are crouching. More on that in a second. I'm not going to spend a ton of time explaining the nitty-gritty part of how the radar works because we could, in all seriousness, spend hours talking about it. So instead, I suggest checking out videos by Ascendant Nomad and Castle Content, whom break down the nuts and bolts of how radar works in Destiny, and more specifically in the Crucible. This next part is all about radar manipulation. One of the best things you can do to manipulate yourself on the radar is to crouch. Whenever you crouch, your ping on someone else's radar will briefly go away, almost to the effect of like a weak pulse. Now, there are many situations where this can become a really big benefit for you. Maybe you notice there's someone on the other side of the wall from you. By crouching, you're taking yourself off of their radar for a brief second, and then that allows you to push in for a quick shotgun melee kill. Or maybe you've got a very distant ping on your radar, and you and your team are communicating when you want to try and team shot that person. By crouching, you're taking away information that the other team can use against you. And before you know it, once they see your blip on their radar, they're already dead because of how you coordinated your attack. There is so much potential to outplay your opponents by manipulating your radar. One of the things I like to do when I play is to hold angles while I'm crouched. If I know for a fact that people will be coming out of a certain area of the map, I'll hold the angle with my primary or my sniper and wait for them to come out of cover. While I'm doing this, I'm also crouching, which is taking my ping off of their radar for a brief moment. By doing this, I'm gambling that for the second they take to look at their radar before they decide to run out of cover, they don't see me on their radar. If they don't, then 9 times out of 10, I have a clean shot on whoever makes that decision. Anything that you can do to manipulate the amount of information the opponent gets is always going to put you at an advantage. Crouching is one of the simplest ways to do that. There's something else that I wanted to talk about today, and it might be the number one thing that's holding you back from getting better at PvP. You might be playing too much. Yeah, you heard me right. You might be playing too dang much. Ask any high-level PvP player how important it is for them to take a break from the game. Oh, and I'm not just talking about Destiny, literally any other game. Ask some of the top players how important it is to take a break from playing the game that they heavily compete in. It is okay to step away from this game. For how much time some of you are putting in to try and get better at the game, good on you, man. Keep going, keep grinding. But eventually you need to reset and recalibrate, especially if you're someone who feels like they've hit a wall, or maybe you feel like your growth has been stunted a bit. Take a break. Go play something else. Your aim's not going to get significantly worse, you won't forget how to play, and your gear sure as heck isn't going anywhere. Take a break. Find another game to get invested in for a few days or even a week. Destiny will still be there waiting for you. Most times, and this is usually at the end of each season, I take a week or two to just play different games. Some of them aren't even shooter games, and by the time I come back, I need like 1, maybe 2 games at most to feel like I'm back to how I was before I took a break. In fact, most of the time, I feel like I'm better when I come back. My aim feels on point, my consistency is consistent, everything just feels, well, like it should. Trust me, do yourself a solid. Relieve yourself from this game for a while. I promise you'll not only feel better about how you're playing the game, but you'll also feel much better about yourself. If this video helped you in any way, please hit the like button and share it with a friend. Let's try to help as many gamers as we can. If you want to join our Discord server, just click on the link below to join it. Thank you all for watching, and as always, we'll see ya.